Hey, welcome to tonight's live stream. I'm still waiting for the Rumble Live to come on here, but we're going to go forward. I don't know why it's... There we go. Maybe. Okay, there we go. It looks good. Hey, so in tonight's live stream, I want to talk about two things. One is a message for the pro-Palestinian campus protesters. Maybe some advice. I'm not a protester. I don't have it all figured out, but I think you're doing it wrong. I think you're doing it wrong, and I've got some advice for you to take it or leave it for what it's worth. Then the second thing I want to talk about is this bill that the House of Representatives just passed about anti-Semitism. We're going to talk about those two things. If you like this live stream, I would love a thumbs up. If you get any value out of it, share it with someone who you think might also enjoy it. And I'd love to have you as a subscriber, not only here on YouTube and or Rumble, but also on my social media at gmarkphillips, anywhere at gmarkphillips. So let's jump into the advice that I have for college campus protesters. The kids on the college campus. My advice is this. Thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate you. My advice is this. If I was a college student protesting the Palestinian, the treatment by Zionist Israel leaders of the Palestinian people, the horrific treatment there, I would probably not go to a protest. I would probably just go into the registrar's office with thousands of my friends and say, hey, I'm withdrawing from school and I'm not coming back. If thousands of those kids went and did that, I think that would send a bigger message than going out there and camping out all night on the campus quad. I mean, it's wild to me, and now we got protesters protesting protesters, right? You got people coming in, beating up the other protesters. I don't see the benefit of protesting in that way when clearly they're going to meet with resistance. And you never really want to fight the power of the Western machine, like the Western military industrial complex. You never want to fight it that way. That's not the way. Go into the campus, again, go into your school registrar and withdraw from classes. That's what I would do. But I would do that times thousands. The reality is many of those schools aren't teaching those kids any much value anyway. We're seeing what's happening. They're getting out of college and they're going out into the job market, and there's no jobs out there because, again, Western society is collapsing, right? Economically, socially, culturally, due in large part to the subversion that's been happening for decades, right? They've been hammering away for decades. We're near the very end, I feel. And it could get better, but it also could get worse. I don't know. If people don't wake up in enough time, it's going to get real bad. But I'm not really sure what the end goal here is, to keep getting beat up and arrested. It's not really I don't think it's going to play out well. So that's my first bit of advice. And this is two parts. My first bit of advice is to withdraw from school, even if it may be for just a semester or a quarter. I mean, just get out of there. Leave. Times 1,000 if you can do it. That's going to send a huge message to these colleges. My second piece of advice is this. I feel we're in a war of information, right? I feel we're in a psychological war. In a war of information, the thing you want to do is fight information with information. If you can recruit other people and show the people in your life, hey, look at all of this information about what Israel is doing and has been doing to the Palestinian people for 76 years. Show them about the Nakba in 1948. Show them how military forces went in and removed 700,000 plus Palestinians to make way for Israeli people to come to that land. See, the thing of it is, Jewish people even know about this. Seth Rogen has a clip. Him and Mark Maron are on the podcast, and Seth Rogen says, yeah, I'm freaked out about what happened over there too, and I'm freaked out about it as well. Excuse me. And he talks to the fact that he didn't know that. They don't know the history, because in Israel, it's my understanding that they don't talk about the Nakba. It is a situation that is not spoke of. It's a it's something they push deep. They push it down so far beneath the surface that they never speak of it. And so it's a thing over there because they want to project them that they're moral. Like the army is very concerned with being the most moral army in the world, which, if anyone had a friend who was so concerned with being perceived as moral and ethical and right and a good person, and they lived their life in that way, as opposed to just being a moral and ethical and good person, they would probably not hang out a lot with that friend, because that's a weird psychosis. So my second offering to these college students: start a media company, or start 10 media companies. In the Israeli government, there is a organization slash, I believe it's a whole government agency called Hasbara. And it's the whole purpose is to present a certain image, a crafted image that makes Israel look good all the time. College kids, you're into tech, you're on your computers, set up a room, go somewhere not off grid, but go somewhere and rent a big warehouse and start spreading the news of what you know about Israel. Watch those documentaries. Watch Tantura. Watch The Other Israel by Ted Pike. Watch Abby Martin's stuff. Gaza, her documentary on Gaza. Watch the what is it? The Control of the American Mind. I think the title's not quite right. I have it there, but it is about the propaganda machine from Israel. There's so many. Look at the things that Roger Waters is doing. So many videos on YouTube exposing the lies and deception that is happening over there, and exposing the way the Palestinian people are and have been treated for 76 years. I mean, start the biggest media company you can do and just hammer social media and hammer content. Don't go toe to toe with these people. You're never going to win. You're never going to win. You have to change hearts and minds. You have to speak truth to power. I say these things because I want to try to help you, right? I see what you're doing and your heart's in the right place, but you're not only are you putting yourself in harm's way and actually probably not being effective, but the other thing of it is, if you're protesting, you have to also look at the bigger picture, what the New World Order folks want. They want people to clash. They want fighting. They want chaos. They want disorder. That is what happens. That is what they want to happen. They want to create order out of disorder, right? They want people to fight to exhaustion, and then they'll come in and say, oh, look, well, we're going to put a new world order in now. That's exactly their game plan. When I see these violent protests and clashes, I'm like, oh man, you people are playing right into the hands of the most devious, sick people on the planet. Don't give them the time of day. You have to fight information with information. The only reason people are waking up. I've seen so many comments with people that know what Israel is. They know the creation of Israel. They know about the Nakba. They know about what the Israel is doing to the Palestinian, and Zionist Israel is doing to the Palestinian people. Show them videos of Israeli people marching in the street just last year. They're probably still doing it, asking for Netanyahu to resign. Israel is torn within, even people, because people are waking up. Like, people are waking up in a big way. So, and that's what I do on my social media channels as well. Is I'm not trying to change people's mind. I'm showing them information, saying, hey, put this into the mix, right? Do you know who these people are? Do you know what they've done? Do you know what they're doing, right? Because the mainstream media is completely captured by pro-Zionist propaganda, right? They whitewash everything. They have us see what they want us to see. They have us see those horrific images coming out of Gaza because they know it's going to agitate people. If you read Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini, written in 1871, they want the fighting. They know that this is their game plan to try to bring about WW3 and or a new world order. This is the game plan. And that's why it's heartbreaking to see people falling into the game plan. And I'm like, come on, guys, just read some of these things. I mean, are you really doing what you should be doing? So that's it. Stop giving your money to these universities that are not going to be responsive to you and what you want, and get thousands of your friends to do it, and also start media companies, digital media companies, en masse. So that's my message to the college campus protesters. Now I want to talk briefly about the bill that the House of Representatives recently passed just today, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the first. It's wild to me, with all the problems in our country and our world, problems at the border, problems with inflation, problems in our housing market, systemic problems in our housing market with investment firms, BlackRock being the biggest, most culprit firm, buying up single-family homes at an alarming rate, under the undermining of our culture, the undermining of our society, just crazy problems we're seeing in our world. And the House of Representatives' biggest issue is to pass an anti-Semitism bill. Anti-Semitism is not a good thing, but neither is anti-Palestinian, action. So our House passes anti-Semitism bill. I'm on NBC News website, with broad bipartisan support. It shows you who's running our country. It shows you what their priorities are. Their priorities are not to address inflation for the American people. Their priorities are not to secure the border, that Americans pay tax dollars for the services we have, or supposedly for the services we have in our country. And now many of those services, specifically in New York City, they're being given to people that haven't paid the tax dollars. Wouldn't you rather give the services to the people that have been paying tax dollars? I think that's an appropriate use of money. This says the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act would require the Education Department to adopt the definition of anti-Semitism used by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. So see, they're now going after the youth. They always want to start with those young minds, the impressionable minds. The House on Wednesday passed a bipartisan bill aimed at combating anti-Semitism as pro-Palestinian protests royal colleges across the United States. And I've said this before, it's okay for Antifa and Black Lives Matter to literally burn down cities, literally destroy businesses. Some of those businesses were Black-owned businesses. It's literally okay for them to do whatever they want, but as soon as college campus students gets protesting, you got to shut that down if it's about Israel. The measure passed in a 320-91 vote. 21 Republicans and 70 Democrats voted against the legislation. The bill, titled the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, would mandate that the Education Department adopt the broad definition of anti-Semitism used by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, an intergovernmental group, to enforce anti-discrimination laws. So here again, you have an entity outside of the United States that is putting pressure. I'm sure it's coming through the AIPAC lobby committee, putting pressure on the government to make a law. I mean, again, it's wrong to do anti-Semitic stuff, but it's also wrong to mess with the First Amendment, and also wrong to mess with Palestinians in the way that they have been messed with for 76 years. Now, here's where it gets good. It's going to talk about what the law is, and it'll blow your mind. It's wild the way it's written. Many of these laws these days are very vague, very broad, very open-ended, and it's super scary, because when the government gets broad, vague, open-ended laws, you're in for a mess, an absolute mess. The international group defines anti-Semitism, and this is what I was talking about, as, and I quote, a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. A certain perception. What does that mean? Thanks for the thumbs up. I appreciate you. A certain perception. That doesn't make any... What is that? What is that? Perceptions, in my mind, happen inside the mind. which may be expressed as hatred. So maybe, that is wild. That is scary and wild. The group adds that rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism include such things as calling for the killing or harming of, I better be careful what I say here, JEWS, or holding JEWS collectively responsible for actions taken by the state of Israel. That's wild, especially considering, like we just talked about, some JEWS are not down with what Israel's doing at all. So how do you sort that out? The bill's prospects in the Senate are unclear. Asked whether the Senate would take up the legislation, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer told reporters earlier Wednesday that we haven't seen what the House is sending us yet. Representative Mike Lawler introduced the bipartisan legislation, which received backing from Democratic moderates who are supporters of Israel amid the country's war with Hamas. He quotes, "In every generation, the Jewish people have been scapegoated, harassed, evicted from their homeland, and murdered." Lawler said before the vote in the House floor, "The Jewish people need our support now," he said. "They need action now." I'm curious why they don't think the Palestinian people need their support. To my understanding, they're basically starving to death and or being bombed to death. I don't know how they even live in that area. It's rubble. It's a rubble city because of all the bombs that have been dropped on it. The bill comes as Republicans seek to launch investigations into anti-Semitism on college campuses. What about the investigations for Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the investigations into other crimes that could be being done by political figures in our country? I don't see those investigations. In response to the pro-Palestinian protests, the current version of the legislation was introduced in late October. Also, it was that long ago, after Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel, brought back to the floor this week. So it's been around for a long time. In a letter Monday to House Speaker Mike Johnson, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries wrote, quote, "There is nothing scheduled on the floor this week that would accomplish the concrete, thoughtful strategies outlined by the Biden administration to combat anti-Semitism." Jeffries had demanded a vote on the bipartisan Countering Anti-Semitism Act, which aims to address concerns over rising anti-Semitism through the appointment of a new advisor to the president who would be dedicated to implementing its coordinated strategy to counter anti-Semitism. Let's just grow government even more, even though we can't afford our government that we have right now anyway. And I don't see him starting a inflation committee to talk about how to get the inflation down, or telling the Fed to stop printing money out of thin air, or a border crisis committee. But this is apparently top of the docket for them. The effort to crush anti-Semitism and hatred in any form is not a Democratic or Republican issue, Jeffries wrote. It's an American issue that must be addressed in a bipartisan manner with the fierce urgency of now, end quote. Lawler's bill faced opposition from some progressive and far-right lawmakers, as well as the American Civil Liberties Union, which called the bill's definition of anti-Semitism overbroad. So apparently people who think it's broad, they're not alone. The American Civil Liberties Union, it is broad, it's silly, it's ridiculous. My gut feeling is it won't go anywhere in the House. I mean, it's too silly. But it is scary that they're even talking about it. It's weird. Speech that is critical, and this is a quote, "Speech that is critical of Israel or any other government cannot alone constitute harassment." ACLU leaders wrote in a letter to lawmakers last week, urging them to oppose the measure. That is awesome. Let's read that again. "Speech that is critical of Israel or any other government cannot alone constitute harassment." Thank goodness for them saying that, because that's some common sense. The letter pointed in part to an example of anti-Semitism included in the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition, which says anti-Semitism could include denying the JEWISH people their right to self-determination, e.g., by claiming that the existence of the state of Israel is a racist endeavor. Well, what are you going to do? Just say to the percentage of people in the world that if you think the state of Israel is is in fact a Nakba, is in fact a catastrophe, shouldn't be there, you're going to just tell them you can't say that anymore? I think it's silly. There's clearly a lot of people that think that it is a Nakba. I'm one of them. Representative Pramila Jayapal, chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, voted against the bill after telling reporters on Tuesday that Republicans were weaponizing anti-Semitism. Quote, "We all have to continue to speak out against anti-Semitism and be clear that we will not tolerate anti-Semitism any more than we tolerate Islamophobia or any other hatred and discriminations that are out there," she said. Jayapal also argued that the bill, quote, "has a definition that is so broad." See, there it is again. It's so broad that many Jewish groups do not support it. Back to my comment about teaching these college kids to start up a huge media company with thousands of kids all on their laptop just going away. That's what they're all techie anyway. Get it going, kids. You all know what to do. I love sharing testimonials of rabbis and prominent figures in the Jewish community that are speaking out against Zionism, out against Netanyahu. Miko Peled, I shared a video of his on my Instagram at gmarkphillips many weeks ago now, talking about the Balfour Declaration, and he basically says, "Oh yeah, these." I don't know how much I can say here on YouTube. I feel a little more free saying it on social media. He's saying, white people got together and said, "Oh, we're going to take the land of these people over there in Palestine." And his father, my understanding, his father was a prominent general in the Israeli Defense Forces or in the Israeli government in some sense. His name is Miko Peled, P-E-L-E-D. Who else is another one that I hear? Again, I talked about the Seth Rogen thing. They're out there. I need to do more searching and get out there and share more of them, because those really hit hard. Because there's so many Americans, in my experience, that are kind of in the middle. They've been fed the propaganda machine has fed them for so long that they think they know what's up, and they may not know what's up. I mean, none of us may know what's up. We may all be wrong about it, but the only way we get towards the right answer is we continually educate ourselves, watching those documentaries, listening to, the rabbis, the Jewish people that are speaking out against it, because there's plenty of them out there. So let's see. So even this gal says, they don't support it. Then I have another quote here. She says, "So why would you do that? Except if you want to weaponize anti-Semitism and you want to use it as a political ploy," end quote. And that's 100% right. She said, "Let's remember that many of these Republicans didn't say a word when Donald Trump and others in Charlottesville, other places, were saying truly anti-Semitic things." I don't remember that. Separately, Representative Jerry Nadler of New York, it looks like, said that the definition was so broad that it would threaten constitutionally protected free speech. He too voted against the bill. See, this is what's wild. It is clearly encroaching on constitutional free speech, and yet it still passed with the 371 to whatever, 90. Representative Sarah Jacobs, California, released a statement after voting against the bill, saying that while she has experienced anti-Semitism all her life, the bill would stifle First Amendment rights to free speech and free assembly. Good for her. Jacobs also said that she does not believe that anti-Zionism is inherently anti-Semitism. And that's where I fall. I like to draw the distinction, because again, back to the Hasbara, the Israeli Department for Spin. They're basically spin doctors. Their whole goal, and they've worked with high-level advertising agents in the United States over the last 50 years, 60 years, to frame it in such a way, and you know what they say, well, we're just defending ourselves. But many times over the last 50, 60 years, they have actually gone on the offensive, but they always frame it in we are defending ourselves. And so that's in people's minds, right? It's basically branding and marketing. And, like Nike just do it, or, McDonald's just loving it, or whatever they're loving it, what their thing is, gets in people's mind, and then it gets generationally passed on. And that's high level advertising, promoting branding ideology. And now people are, and this is why I did it too, because I was like, how do I differentiate between, because again, back to the college students, you don't want to play a game that you can't win. You don't want to play, you don't want to enter into their playing field because they've set it up in a way that you won't win. You have to restructure it and say, okay, and as I tell people, no, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm anti-political Zionist, right? Because I've seen the damage that it does. I'm glad this person said that. So noting that conflating free speech and hate crimes will not make Jewish students any safer. It will not. It will just erode freedoms from the American people. And this is what's been happening for so many, happened in early 2000s when we had the tragedy in New York. You introduce the Patriot Act thinking, and of course they always make it sound like it's beneficial for Americans. It's not. Patriot Act gives the government more power. The Department of Homeland Security gives the government more power, and or creates another agency that American people have to pay for to watch them more, to put them more under the thumb. It's wild. It's wild. So it doesn't do anything to keep us safer. In fact, just the opposite. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene voted against the bill because of a disagreement with an example of anti-Semitism listed in the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition, which referred to using, quote, symbols and images, such as claims of JEWS killing Jesus, or blood libel to describe Israel and Israelis. So I'm mildly familiar with those statements, but that's wild. Green argued in a post to X that the bill could convict Christians of anti-Semitism for believing the gospel that says Jesus was handed over to Herod to be crucified by the JEWS. See, that's good for her. Representative Matt Gaetz voted against the bill for similar reasons, pointing to the same example of anti-Semitism, which is considered harmful by many Jews. The Bible is clear, he wrote on X, there is no myth or controversy around this. Activists working to counter anti-Semitism have pointed out that JEWS have been scapegoated throughout history for events including the crucifixion of Jesus, and that these claims have been used to justify violence against JEWS. I'm sure that probably happened, but I just don't know why we continually have to chip away at our freedoms in the United States. Again, I think it's sketchy. I think they're always angling for something. Again, I don't trust government at all in any way, shape, or form. So I posted a meme a while ago, and the meme was like, government's talking, and the meme says, I wasn't listening, but I disagree wholeheartedly. Like I would disagree with everything they say, because I just don't, the American people are so not in charge. Lobby groups, political action committees, billionaire philanthropists, they are in charge. They get whatever they want. And so I know anything coming out of Washington is going to be pro them and against American people, right? Corporations, let's not forget about the corporations too. The corporations are going to get whatever they want. They've got the money. Pfizer gives Trump $1 million. Trump's going to give them what they want, So we're not in charge, and the more people wake up to it, the better off we're going to be. Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate you. Again, I'd love to have you as a subscriber, and not only here on YouTube, but also on my Instagram at gmarkphillips. And until next time, I wish you all the best health, wealth, and success. Have an awesome night. Bye-bye.